Back in 1998, fans of Grand Prix racing were in for one of the most crazy title deciders ever. The world champion of the previous 4 seasons, Max Biaggi, left the intermediate class to go on to race on board a 500. Valentino Rossi debuted in the 250cc class, and the Aprilia factory team had 2 title favorites with the likes of Capirossi and Tetsuya Harada. The title decider came all the way down to the last corner of the last lap on the last race of this legendary season. Even though someone was crowned world champion that day, he got fired as a result of his controversial actions, which secured him the title. Let's go back in time and go through the build-up, the season, and the aftermath of the 1998 250cc World Championship. In one corner of this 250cc title fight, we have one former champion in this class, Tetsuya Harada. He clinched the 1993 title by just 4 points against that year's runner-up, Capirossi, on board a Yamaha. In the other corner is the just mentioned Capirossi. After his title fights on board a Honda in the 250s, he was promoted to the 500s in 1995. There he only stayed on a Honda NSR 500 for just 1 year, despite a solid rookie season, due to the fact that Marlboro was more of a worthwhile sponsor than the Honda was as a bike for him. He therefore went to Yamaha for the 1996 season, as their connections to the cigarette brand worked out more in favor of the young Italian. However, he returned to the 250s in 97, trying to finally claim a world title in this class. And in the final corner we have the most anticipated rookie in history up until that point, Valentino Rossi. After his first season in the 125cc class in 1996, he did get increased support by Aprilia in 1997 and ridiculously dominated that season. As a result of his accolades, he did get promoted to the 250s in 1998. 3 very different characters with very different career paths and future projections. But they all had one common ground for 1998. Aprilia. The Italian manufacturer dominated the smaller classes during the 90s with their absolutely gorgeous RS125 and RS250 machinery. To this day, the RS250 in the Imola Valentino Rossi design is just my absolute dream bike. But the prices they go for these days and the reliability that they are known for, just get a new bike at the dealer at this point. Let's get back on track. Aprilia's 250cc factory team officially only had 2 riders, Capirossi and Harada. But thanks to good paying sponsors, they just decided to create a second team where Vale was the only rider. Aprilia only had 2 goals in mind: the manufacturer title and the rider world championship. It doesn't matter who wins the latter, but it has to be on an Aprilia. The riders also only had 1 goal in the World Championship, but only one of them could make it. Fans knew before the season that this year was gonna be a dirty dogfight, but no one could have anticipated the climax of the 250cc class in 1998. The 1998 season opener was the Grand Prix of Suzuka in Japan. Japan was a powerhouse when it came to talent on home soil back in the 90s. Across all 3 Grand Prix classes, only 1 non-Japanese rider secured a spot on the podium that Sunday. And if we look at just the 250cc class, only 5 non-Japanese riders managed to get into the places 1 through 16. One of them was Tetsuya Harada on P4, Capirossi ended the race on P7, while Rossi retired due to a technical defect on his bike. The winning bike this season was a beautifully designed Castrol Honda, and the rider of that Honda was Daijiro Kato. He's definitely a rider for a future video, like seriously. If you wanna see that, leave a like so I'll know that you wanna see the Daijiro Kato stuff, and just subscribe while you're at it so you won't miss it. I really hate to plug myself like that, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. While the season didn't start with the domination Aprilia was hoping for, this was the only weekend of the year in which the winner did not ride on Italian machinery. Just 2 weeks later, the second race of the year in Malaysia was underway. This was the first one with Aprilia internal drama. Tetsuya Harada, Toru Ukawa and Valentino Rossi were all fighting for the win throughout the race. Into the last corner of the last lap, Harada overtook Rossi as clean as possible, and all Rossi had to do to take at home at least 20 points was to accept his fate and slot in back after Harada. But that's not Rossi. Stubborn as he was, he didn't want to give up the position, and while he managed to avoid contact, he crashed out of what would have been his first podium in this class. Loris Capirossi only managed to get on P5 in Malaysia. Another 2 weeks later they started a European tour in Jerez. At first it looked like all three factory Aprilias could fight for the win, but then Harada's bike had a technical problem. Following that, the two Italian favorites started carefully and cleanly battling it out. Aprilia saw the fight and the charging Hondas, which wouldn't have become a real threat, and sent out Harada just in time to slot back in after the two leading Aprilias. But even back then it was against the rules to disrupt the fight if you're not even in contention anymore. Therefore, Harada did get disqualified. Ultimately, Loris Capirossi won, with Valentino Rossi taking P2. Round 4 of the 98 season was a home race for Aprilia and two of its factory riders as they raced in Mugello. Harada was on pole but had some difficulties at the start, which put him on last place. Rossi quickly made his way to the lead as Capirossi also recovered some positions. Already by lap 6, Harada caught up to the top 3, crossing the line in 4th. It then started to rain, which was enough to call for a red flag. But the race restarted in dry conditions as it was just a quick shower. And back then they still had this rule where both race times, the one before the red flag and the one after the red flag, would be added up to determine the ultimate winner. So the person that's leading on track now is not necessarily the leader of the race. Tetsuya Harada quickly went up to P1 and didn't let go of it this time. However, it wasn't enough to secure the victory for this one. Race winner was the 41-year-old wildcard Marcelino Lucchi. Think about it, more than double the age of P2 Valentino Rossi. Harada could get on P3 and Capirossi on P4, so for the factory, this was a perfect day. In France, the fight for the win was between Rossi and Harada. Rossi could have had it, but at one point he didn't really want to take the lead after Harada went wide, and when he thought he won the race, he wheelied over the finish line on the penultimate lap. Capirossi ended up on P3, making this the first of just 2 podiums the entire seasons where all of the 3 locked it out. The trio had a mixed race in Madrid. Rossi crashed out while leading the race, Harada took the lead and didn't let go of it, but Capirossi probably rode the hardest. He was trailing behind on 5th place, crashed into Olivier Jacques and taking him out, but he still managed to recover and end up on P3. A move like that would give you at least a double long lap penalty nowadays. The 3 championship leading Aprilias took the fight to Assen. Everyone had a good chance of winning and pretty much the same pace. But after lap 8, Harada's Aprilia called in for early retirement, and 1 lap later, at the exact same spot on the track, Capirossi's bike also left him stranded. Therefore, Valentino Rossi won the race with a 19-second lead. The following race in Donington holds a special place in my heart. Back then my dad used one of those Hi8 cameras to record some home videos sometimes. And while the Donington race in 1998 took place, he recorded me giving a detailed analysis on the events. So yeah, Rossi crashed out and the fight for the win was heartbreaking. Harada had such a good race and was just superior. He was constantly putting Capirossi back into his place. But in the last round, he ran out of fuel, handing the gold over to his rival turned teammate. The final race before the summer break was the GP at the Sachsenring. Tetsuya Harada was in a league of his own. He finished over 9 seconds ahead of Jeremy McWilliams on P2, who managed to reign victorious against a tight fight against Valle. Loris Capirossi couldn't quite keep up with the leading pace and landed on P4. In late August, the racing returned after the summer break to Brno. Rossi tried to make the most heroic move ever, but failed at doing that, losing control of his Aprilia and crashing into another rider. The fight for the lead between Harada and Capirossi kept on going until Loris just let Harada go. Again, Aprilia locked out the podium as the Mugello race winner Marcelino Lucchi crossed the line in third. Harada had a chance to extend his lead in the championship in Imola, but he had some issues in the start as Valle just took off. The Japanese recovered and caught up to Rossi, but then threw it away. He still managed to cross the line in 10th place. Loris Capirossi finished in second. But what stands out for me in this race is just the image of Rossi with his dyed hair on the beautiful livery. That's just legendary. In Catalunya, Capirossi did a few mistakes in moments where he just asked a bit too much from his bike, therefore finishing in third. Harada ended up ahead of him as Valle took his second win in a row. This race also featured one of the most spectacular crashes in history. Jeremy McWilliams caught up to Roberto Rolfo on the main straight, then Rolfo slightly changed his line, which caused contact that pulled the brake lever of McWilliams. Just look at it. That was like the best outcome of such a situation and probably the best ad for leather suits. The second to last race of the season took place in Phillip Island, and there the bad luck for Harada continued. He was in a proper fight for the win with Valle, Loris and Olivier Jacques, but his engine seized, locking up the rear wheel and catapulting him into the gravel. Oh, I forgot to mention, Harada was pretty much riding with a broken foot the entire second half of the season. Rossi won his third race in a row and Capirossi came in second, just ahead of Jacques. We are just about to reach the final race of the season. However this race would end, Aprilia had the Rider Championship secured. Capirossi led the standings with 204 points and Harada was in second with 200 points. Let's do the maths and see what happened. For Tetsuya Harada to become world champion, a first place would guarantee the title and a second place would still be enough as long as Capirossi is behind him. If Capirossi crosses the line in third and Harada in second, they would have the same amount of points, but the title would be awarded to Harada as he has more race wins. So to make it short, Harada would need to end up in a position where he would get 4 points or more over the position of Loris Capirossi. For Capirossi to win the title, the equation is a bit simpler. Just land ahead of the Japanese colleague. The race took place at the Autodromo Oscar Alfredo Galvez in the Argentine's capital, Buenos Aires. Loris Capirossi managed to get on pole while Tetsuya Harada qualified in P4. Both were good positions back then, since one row was made up of 4 slightly offset bikes as opposed to the 3 rather distant ones of today. So the advantages of a pole position were typically rather marginal. For research purposes, I've repeatedly watched this race now, and I discovered a thing that might have changed the dynamic of the outcome if race direction would have seen it too. Valentino Rossi pulled a jump start and didn't get penalized for it. None of them got off the line in a good manner, so the race started with the Aprilias recovering places. Harada quickly took the lead and Capirossi eventually followed him. Once they were close to each other, they started fighting for the lead with tactical overtakes. While some of Capirossi's moves were a little close, they were still within the realms of a hard but fair fight. Thanks to their battle at the front, Valle could catch up to them. Then Harada went wide but stayed on track, giving Rossi the opportunity to pull through. Just a few corners later, the 19-year-old also passed his fellow Italian on the number 65. And then the last lap came around. With Rossi long gone in front, marching towards his 4th win in a row, Harada managed to get back on 2nd place, meaning if he keeps that position, he will be world champion once again. He went into the penultimate corner of the final lap and charging in from way back comes Capirossi. There was no chance in any circumstance that he could pass Harada there. Capirossi just made sure to hit the apex before the Japanese and, by doing so, taking him out of the race. This despicable maneuver made him the 250cc world champion of 1998. I think the commentator said it best in the moment.
Well, if he's going to do tactics like that, then so be it. I hope that he sleeps well this evening. He might have won the championship, but that is a cruel way to nerf Harada out of the championship as a whole.
While the podium celebrations were on their way, news reached the broadcast that Capirossi would be disqualified for this race. That disqualification was later revoked, but it wouldn't have made a difference in the final standings anyway. For 1999, Harada did get promoted to the new Aprilia project in the 500s, finishing his first season in the top 10 with 2 podiums as the Rookie of the Year. Once Aprilia quit their efforts in the Premier class again in 2001, he returned to the 250s only to finish as a runner-up again, this time behind the already mentioned Daijiro Kato. Loris Capirossi did get fired from Aprilia after refusing to apologize, but found a last-second seat in the 250s at the Honda Gresini team. He would later become one of the driving forces behind the Ducati project with his best season in 06 when he finished 3rd in the MotoGP championship standings. Nowadays he is a part of the MotoGP Safety Commission and his jobs involves making sure that all the marshals are at the right spots and all of the safety measurements are taken care of. And the final man of the trio, Valentino Rossi. Do I need to say anything? He went on to win the 250cc World Championship and then the MotoGP World Championship. 7 times. Thanks to his expressive persona, his VR46 Academy, and being one of the first riders to understand how to market himself as a brand, he became the most influential rider in the history of the sport. The 2 championship rivals of 1998 eventually came to terms, considering each other friends again and occasionally hang out together. What are your feelings about this championship? Let me know in the comments. I just think it was the wrong move at the wrong time. And just like morally, if you can't beat a guy with a broken foot on the same machinery as you probably don't deserve to take the championship over him. But in all fairness, Loris seems like a nice guy. And even in his immediate post-race interview, you could see that while he was happy that he was the new world champion, he was unhappy about how it played out. To me, this final overtake deserves all the heat and maybe ridicule that it gets. But I'm judging the action, not the person. Thanks everyone for watching, and until next time.
Bye bye.